The city slept under a heavy fog, where shadows moved like living things and the streets whispered secrets to those who dared to listen. In the heart of its forgotten quarter stood a small orphanage, a place where the lonely and the unwanted found shelter. Its walls were cracked, paint peeling in gray layers, and the garden had long been overtaken by wild weeds. Among the children of the orphanage, one girl stood out, not because she was the loudest or the brightest, but because she always seemed slightly apart, as if listening to a world no one else could hear. Her name was Alara. She had hair as dark as midnight, eyes that flickered with curiosity and fear, and a quiet strength that drew attention even when she tried to hide. Alara had learned to survive in the orphanage by being invisible. The caretakers were too busy with rules and punishments to notice much, and the older children often bullied the younger ones. She had grown skilled at moving through shadows, avoiding the harsh hands and cruel words of those around her. Yet even in the safety of the orphanage, Alara felt restless, as though some unseen force was calling her. On a night thick with fog, Alara slipped out of her small room. The other children were asleep, the caretakers distracted by their nightly routines. She pulled her shawl tightly around her and crept into the streets, where the fog wrapped around her like a cloak. Tonight, she had decided, she would explore the abandoned part of the city, the place children were warned never to go. The buildings there were crumbling, their windows shattered like broken teeth. Vines and weeds clawed at the walls, and the streets were littered with debris. The air smelled of damp stone and decay, but Alara felt a strange pull, as if the city itself wanted her to come closer. She walked slowly, every step careful, every sound magnified in the stillness. Then she saw it, a tall figure standing in the mist, silent, watching her. His presence was commanding, almost unreal. He was tall, with broad shoulders hidden under a dark cloak, and his eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Alara froze, her heart pounding. She wanted to run, but something in those eyes held her in place. The figure stepped closer, and she saw the sharp angles of his face, the pale skin that seemed untouched by time. "You should not be here," he said, his voice low and smooth like velvet stretched over steel. "I was just—" Alara stammered, unsure of what she wanted to say. He tilted his head, studying her, and a faint smile played across his lips. "No. You were meant to be here." The word sent a shiver down her spine. She had never felt so noticed, so seen, by anyone. And yet, fear gripped her. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Names are not important tonight," he said. His gaze dropped to her hand, which was trembling. "But your blood smells different." Alara didn't understand the words, but she felt them deep inside her, like a spark that had lain dormant for years. The stranger stepped closer, and the air between them grew heavy, thick with an energy she could feel on her skin. "Different?" she repeated, her voice trembling. "Yes," he said simply. "It is rare, dangerous, beautiful." His eyes held hers, and for the first time in her life, Alara felt something she had never known. Curiosity mixed with awe, fear mixed with longing. Before she could respond, the figure moved away, disappearing into the mist as silently as he had appeared. The fog seemed to close around her, and Alara felt a sudden emptiness, as if the world had shifted while he was near. She stumbled back toward the orphanage, heart racing, mind spinning. When she reached her small room, she found a faint mark on her wrist, a pattern etched into her skin, glowing faintly in the moonlight. It pulsed as if alive, and Alara's breath caught in her throat. She pressed her fingers to it, feeling warmth and a strange energy that made her dizzy. The next morning, the orphanage felt different. Even the sounds of the city seemed sharper, more alive. Alara couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, and that the stranger's words, "Your blood smells different," had changed something inside her. Days passed, and the foggy streets began to call her again. She could not explain it, but she knew she had to return. The city's abandoned quarter held secrets, and a part of her wanted to uncover them, even if it meant danger. One evening, she ventured out again, carrying a small satchel with bread and water. The streets were empty, But the shadows seemed to follow her, moving with a life of their own. And then she saw him again. Kalen, the stranger, the alpha vampire, stood at the edge of a ruined fountain, watching. His eyes glowed softly in the fog, and he moved with the grace of a predator who had known centuries of life. "Ilara," he said, his voice both commanding and gentle. "You came." I had to," she said, unsure why she admitted it. "I feel something. I can't explain it." He studied her, as if reading every thought she dared not speak aloud. "That is because you are different. Your blood is rare, bound to old magic long thought lost. That is why I came for you." Ilara took a step back, fear rising again. "Magic? Me?" "Yes," he said simply. "You are connected to forces older than this city, older than your family. You have a gift, though you do not yet understand it." She felt a mix of awe and terror. All her life she had been ordinary in a place that demanded survival. Now she was told she was extraordinary, and the weight of it pressed against her chest like stone. "Why me?" she whispered. Kalen's gaze softened for the briefest moment. "Because only you can awaken what sleeps in me. Only you can change what is to come." Before she could respond, he disappeared again, leaving only the faintest trace of scent in the air, something sweet, metallic, and strange. Ilara fell to her knees, trembling, the mark on her wrist glowing brighter than ever. She knew, without understanding how, that her life would never be the same. The days that followed were filled with restless dreams. Ilara saw visions of forests, bathed in red light, of creatures moving silently under the moon, and of a city ruled by shadows. Every time she closed her eyes, Kalen's face appeared. His eyes filled with both danger and something tender she could not name. She realized she could no longer pretend to be invisible, no longer hide in the shadows. The city itself seemed to pull her toward the stranger, toward the magic in her blood, toward a destiny she could not escape. One night she returned to the abandoned quarter, drawn as if by a thread she could not see. The fog was thick, curling around her like fingers, and the air hummed with unseen power. There, at the edge of the ruined fountain, Kalen waited. "You are ready," he said simply, as if he had known all along. I don't know," she admitted. Fear and longing twisted inside her, a storm she could not control. "You will learn," he said, extending a hand. "Come with me, and I will show you who you are, and who you could become." Ilara hesitated, the mark on her wrist burning like fire. She looked at the dark city around her, at the shadows that had been her home, and then back at him. The choice was clear. Her life as she knew it was ending, and a new one was beginning. One filled with danger, magic, and something she had never allowed herself to feel: hope. Slowly, she reached out and took his hand. The moment their fingers touched, a shiver ran through her, stronger than any she had ever felt. The city seemed to pause, the fog swirling around them as if acknowledging the bond that had formed. Kalen's eyes met hers, and for a heartbeat, the world narrowed to just the two of them. Then he leaned close, his voice low, a whisper meant only for her. "Your blood. It is unlike any I have known. And now, Ilara, your life will never be your own again." Her heart pounded. Fear, excitement, and an impossible longing twisted together. She knew he was right. Something had shifted inside her, something that could not be undone. As they stepped into the deeper streets, where shadows moved and secrets waited, Ilara felt both terror and exhilaration. The world she had known, the world of loneliness, fear, and invisibility, was gone. In its place, a new, dark, and dangerous path awaited, one where she would walk with a creature of the night, and where every heartbeat might bring both wonder and peril. And so, under the silver glow of the moon and the thick veil of fog, Ilara's life changed forever. The orphan girl who had hidden in shadows was gone, replaced by someone new, someone connected to power, danger, and a destiny she had only just begun to understand. The city at night was a place of shadows and secrets, a place where even the bravest footsteps hesitated. For Alara, each step felt heavier than the last, as though the fog itself pressed against her. She had left the orphanage behind, yet she had not left her fear. Her heart still raced every time she thought of the strange man, the alpha vampire, who had changed her life forever. Kaelin led her through narrow streets and over crumbling bridges that crossed rivers dark as ink. He moved silently like a shadow himself, and Alara found she had to run to keep up. Even in his company she felt exposed, vulnerable, but she could not deny the strange pull in her chest, a magnetic force drawing her toward him. Finally, they reached a place hidden from the eyes of the city, a grand citadel, built long ago by hands that had long turned to dust. Its walls were black stone, etched with runes that glimmered faintly in the moonlight. The gates opened silently as Kaelin approached, revealing a courtyard filled with statues frozen in motion, their eyes carved with lifelike intensity. "Where are we?" Alara asked, her voice trembling. "This is my home," Kaelin said. His eyes flickered to her wrist where the mark glowed softly. "And now it will be your refuge as well." She shivered, unsure if it was from cold, fear, or the strange thrill of anticipation. The citadel was unlike anything she had ever seen. Halls lined with crimson tapestries, chandeliers of black crystal reflecting flickering candlelight, and corridors that seemed to stretch endlessly. "You will meet others soon," Kaelin said. "Vampires. Some will test you, some will try to harm you. You must be careful, but you must also trust me." Alara nodded, though her mind raced. She had heard stories of vampires, terrifying creatures who fed on humans without mercy. Yet Kaelin did not seem cruel. His presence was powerful, yes, but not violent. It was commanding, protective, and strangely comforting. As they moved deeper into the citadel, Kaelin stopped before a large room filled with shadows that shifted like living things. Figures emerged from the darkness, vampires of every age, some with hair white as snow, others with eyes like molten gold. They circled Alara slowly, their gazes sharp and assessing. "Alpha," one of them said, a tall vampire with dark hair and piercing eyes. "She is human. Her blood is rare, but she is weak." "She is not weak," Kaelin said, his voice calm but firm. "Her blood carries power, ancient power, and she is under my protection." The other vampires whispered among themselves, doubt and curiosity in their tones. Alara felt fear rising in her chest. She had never been in a place like this, surrounded by creatures she did not understand, creatures stronger, faster, and older than anyone she had ever met. Kaelin stepped closer to her. "Do not be afraid. I will not let them harm you. But you must learn quickly. Your blood has awakened something in me, a hunger that has slept for centuries. You must understand that it is dangerous for both of us." Alara's eyes widened. Hunger? She could not imagine what he meant. Kaelin's gaze softened. "It is not a hunger like you think. It is a bond, a connection that cannot be broken once it begins. Your blood calls to me and I must resist it or we both suffer. You will learn to control it and I will guide you." The vampires around her seemed to tense, and Alara felt the weight of their scrutiny. She had always been invisible in the orphanage, always careful to stay unnoticed, but here, she could not hide. Her very existence drew attention, fascination, and fear. "You are ready to see the truth of your blood," Kaelin said, turning toward a large mirror that reflected the flickering candlelight. "Look, and you will understand." Alara stepped forward reluctantly. As her eyes met her reflection, she saw not just herself, but something shifting beneath her skin. Her veins glowed faintly, pulsing with an inner light, and images flickered behind her eyes. Forests bathed in red moonlight, creatures moving silently, eyes watching her from the darkness. "It is your gift," Kaelin said, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. "You are connected to the old magic. Through your blood I can feel centuries of power, and I can awaken what has been buried inside me." Alara felt a shiver run through her. Centuries of power, buried inside him. She had always believed the world was ordinary, cruel but simple. Now it seemed the world was something else entirely, a place of darkness and magic, danger and wonder where her life was no longer her own. "You must practice," Kaelin continued. "You must learn to control your blood, to understand its strength. It will not be easy. The hunger will tempt you and it will test you." I don't know if I can," Alara whispered. "You can," he said simply, "because you are not like other humans. You have something rare inside you, courage, yes, but also resilience. That is why I chose you." The words filled her with both pride and fear. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust him, yet every instinct in her screamed caution. She had been invisible for so long, alone for so long, and now she was being pulled into a world of shadows, where nothing was certain. Days turned into nights as Kaelin taught her. He showed her how to sense her own blood, how to feel its energy, and how to resist the temptation it created in him. Each lesson left her exhausted, her mind spinning, yet also exhilarated. For the first time she felt powerful. For the first time she felt alive. Yet, with each passing moment, the pull between them grew stronger. Kaelin's eyes lingered on her longer than necessary, his presence so close that she could feel the warmth of his breath, the strength in his hands. Ilara felt the stirrings of a dangerous fascination, one that mixed fear and desire in a way she could not fully understand. One evening, as the moon rose high and bathed the citadel in silver light, Kaelin led her to the edge of the city, where the fog hung thick over the abandoned streets. "Tonight you will face your first test," he said. "A vampire from another clan will come for you. You must control your blood or you risk drawing him to us." Ilara's heart raced. She had trained, yes, but never against a predator. She felt her pulse quicken, and the mark on her wrist burned like fire. She looked up at Kaelin, and he smiled faintly, reassuringly. Yet there was a steel beneath it that told her this was serious. The first attacker came like a shadow, moving faster than her eyes could follow. His eyes glowed red and his fangs flashed in the moonlight. Ilara felt her blood thrum, and instinctively she reached out with the energy she had been learning to control. A wave of power surged through her, and the vampire froze mid-step, caught off guard by the sudden force. Kaelin moved like a storm, fast and precise, and together, they defended themselves. Ilara's heart pounded, fear and excitement mixing into a strange, dizzying thrill. When the fight ended, the vampire retreating, she looked at Kaelin breathless. "You did well," he said quietly. "Better than I expected. Your control grows stronger and so does our bond. But remember this hunger, this connection. It is dangerous. One misstep and it can destroy us both." Ilara nodded, the weight of his words pressing on her. She realized that this world, this magic, this vampire was more than she could have imagined. She was no longer just a frightened orphan. She was part of something larger, something powerful, and terrifying. As they returned to the citadel, the fog curling around them like fingers, Kaelin's gaze lingered on her. "You are not just special, Ilara," he whispered. "You are necessary. Without you, the darkness inside me will consume everything I hold dear." Ilara felt a shiver of understanding and fear. She wanted to run, yet she could not. She wanted to hide, yet every instinct drew her closer. She was learning that in this world, survival meant embracing the danger and the bond between her and Kaelin. The night ended with Ilara in her small room in the citadel. Exhausted but awake with energy she could not explain. The mark on her wrist pulsed softly, and she knew that it would never fade. Kaelin had opened a door into a world she could not leave, a world where her life was no longer her own, and where the vampire who had whispered to her in the fog had become a presence she could not ignore. And deep in her heart, she felt the stirring of something she had never felt before, not fear, not sadness, but longing. Longing for the darkness, for the danger, for the man who had changed her life with just a few whispered words. She closed her eyes, trying to imagine what tomorrow would bring, and the last thought before sleep claimed her was of Kaelin, waiting in the shadows, watching, patient and dangerous, waiting for her to step further into the hunger that would bind them both. The citadel was silent that night, but silence in that place was never safe. Shadows stretched along the walls, twisting and turning as if alive. Candles flickered in the corridors, casting trembling shapes on the black stone. Ilara walked slowly, her steps careful, her senses alert. She had learned much since arriving, but the world Kaelin had pulled her into was still strange and dangerous. Her mark pulsed softly on her wrist, a gentle glow against her skin. It reminded her constantly of Kaelin and the bond they shared. Each beat of her heart seemed to echo in the air around her, and she realized that her blood was no longer just her own. It held something ancient, something powerful, something she did not yet understand. Kaelin waited for her in the courtyard, his tall figure outlined against the fog. His eyes glowed faintly, catching the silver light of the moon. When he saw her, a small, unreadable smile touched his lips. "You are restless tonight," he said, his voice calm, yet edged with concern. I feel strange, Ilara admitted. When I touch the mark, it burns. I see visions, forests, strange skies, creatures. And sometimes I hear whispers I don't understand. Kaelin nodded, stepping closer. You are awakening. The blood in your veins is not ordinary. It carries an old curse, tied to magic older than the city itself. That is why your blood is different and why it calls to me. That is also why it frightens you. Ilara looked down at her wrist. A curse? She whispered. What does it mean? It means, Kaelin said slowly, that you are connected to something far larger than yourself. Long ago, a spell was cast to bind your bloodline to the vampire kind. It was meant to ensure survival, power, and control. Your ancestors paid a price, and now that legacy flows in you. The words made her stomach tighten. She had always felt alone, insignificant, and now she was learning that her life carried weight she had never imagined. A curse, an ancient bloodline, power she could barely understand. It was terrifying. You are not doomed, Kaelin added quickly, reading the fear in her eyes. You are not a prisoner of this curse, but you must learn to control it. If you fail, the magic within you could awaken dangers we are not ready to face. Ilara swallowed hard, her pulse quickening. The thought that she might be a danger, to herself, to Kaelin, to anyone near her, was almost too much to bear. Yet despite the fear, there was also a strange thrill. Her blood was special. She was special. And for the first time, she felt she might matter in a world that had always ignored her. Kaelin led her to a small chamber lined with mirrors. The air inside shimmered faintly, filled with a strange, almost electric energy. Look at yourself, he instructed. See the blood within you. Feel it. Speak to it. Only by understanding it can you control it. Ilara approached the mirrors cautiously. Her reflection was hers, yet different. Her eyes glowed faintly. Her veins seemed to pulse with light, and shadows moved around her as if the mirrors themselves were alive. She reached out, touching the glass, and the moment her fingers met the surface, images flashed in her mind. She saw forests under crimson moons, rivers that ran red like fire, and creatures moving silently in the darkness. She saw herself older, stronger, standing among shadows, controlling forces that could destroy or protect. And then, she saw Kaelin, his face twisted in pain and longing, bound by a hunger he could not deny. Ilara staggered back, gasping. It's too much, she whispered. I don't understand any of this. Kaelin stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. His touch was warm, grounding, yet the energy between them thrummed with tension. You will understand, he said. But you are not alone. That bond, the one your blood has formed with mine, it is a gift as well as a danger. It will guide you, teach you, and yes, tempt you. You must be strong, but you must also trust yourself. And trust me. She looked into his eyes, and for a moment all her fear and doubt melted. There was power in him, yes, and danger, yes, but there was also care and something deeper, something unspoken. Her heart beat faster, a mix of excitement and anxiety twisting inside her. Days passed in training, study, and observation. Ilara learned to sense her own blood, to feel its energy and rhythm. She learned to control it in small ways, lighting a candle without touching it, bending shadows around her, even creating faint images in the air. Each success filled her with pride, each failure with frustration, but Kaelin remained patient, guiding her, challenging her, sometimes smiling in ways that made her chest ache. But it was not only power that grew between them. It was trust, curiosity, and the stirrings of something forbidden, something dangerous. She could feel it in the way he looked at her, the way his presence lingered close, the way his voice softened when he spoke to her alone. She did not understand it fully, and she was afraid of what it meant. Yet she could not deny the pull, the attraction, the sense that she was part of his world now in ways she could not escape. One evening, Kaelin brought her to the old cathedral outside the city, long abandoned, where the stones whispered of ancient power. Here, he said, we will test your control. You must face your fear, your hunger, and the curse within you. Only by facing it can you master it. Ilara nodded, trying to steady her trembling hands. The cathedral was vast, dark, and cold, filled with echoes of the past. Shadows moved as if alive, and the air hummed with a presence she could feel but not see. Kaelin placed his hand lightly on her back. Focus, feel your blood. Do not fear it. You are stronger than you think. Ilara closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. She felt the warmth of her blood, the pulsing energy that connected her to him and the strange, ancient magic within. And then she saw it. Visions of the curse of her ancestors bound to the vampire kind, of choices made long ago that had brought her to this moment. A sudden wave of fear swept over her. The shadows in the cathedral seemed to grow, twisting, reaching. She felt a pull, a hunger dark and powerful calling to her, testing her. Her pulse quickened, and for a moment she thought she would falter. Kaylin's voice cut through the darkness. Do not give in. Control it. Own it. With effort, she forced her fear aside, focusing on the rhythm of her blood, the pulse that connected her to him. Slowly, the shadows receded, and the cathedral fell silent again. Her chest heaved, and she looked at Kaylin, unsure if she had succeeded. You did it, he said softly, pride and relief in his voice. You are stronger than you know. But this is only the beginning. The curse will test you again. So will your bond with me. Ilara's thoughts spun. The curse, the power, the bond, it was all real and it was all dangerous. And yet there was something thrilling in knowing she could fight it, control it, survive it. She had never felt so alive. Kaylin's gaze lingered on her longer than necessary, and Ilara felt a heat rise in her cheeks. She quickly looked away, embarrassed by the emotions she did not understand, yet she could not hide from the pull between them. The connection that hummed with power and tension, a force neither of them could ignore. That night, Ilara lay awake in her small room, thinking of the visions, the curse, and Kaylin. She realized something that frightened and excited her at the same time. She cared for him. Not just for his protection, not just for his guidance, but for him, his presence, his strength, the way he looked at her with something unspoken. And Kaylin was not free either. She had seen the glimpses of his vulnerability, the moments when his mask of control faltered, when his eyes betrayed centuries of loneliness, pain, and desire. She knew the bond between them was not just magical. It was emotional, dangerous, and irreversible. Ilara had stepped into a world she could not leave. She had awakened powers she barely understood, faced dangers she had never imagined, and bonded with a being older, stronger, and more complex than anyone she had ever met. And yet, despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, she felt a sense of purpose, a sense of destiny that thrilled her. The mark on her wrist pulsed gently in the moonlight, a reminder of the bond, the curse, and the journey ahead. Ilara knew that her life had changed forever. The orphan girl who had lived in shadows, afraid and invisible, was gone. In her place was someone new, someone bound to power, to magic, to a vampire who would not let her go. And in the quiet of the cathedral, the city, and the citadel, a single truth became clear. The curse within her blood was not only a danger, it was a path that would lead her into darkness, into power, into Kaylin's world. And the moment she embraced it, she knew there would be no turning back. The shadows moved closer, the wind whispered secrets, and the night held its breath. Ilara had crossed the threshold. The moon hung high over the city, casting long shadows that stretched across the citadel. The night air was cool, but inside Ilara felt a fire burning, a mixture of fear, determination, and something she did not yet understand. She had trained for weeks, learning to control her blood, to master the ancient magic within her, yet no lesson, no amount of guidance from Kaylin could prepare her for what was coming. Kaylin stood in the courtyard, tall and silent, his cloak fluttering in the wind. His eyes glowed faintly, a storm of emotions hidden behind the calm mask he wore for the world. Ilara approached him cautiously, her pulse quickening. She had never seen him so serious, so tense. Tonight, Kaylin said, his voice low, we face them. The council will come and they will test us. They do not trust our bond, nor do they understand your power. They see only danger. Ilara nodded, feeling both fear and resolve. What do we do? She asked. We fight, Kaylin said simply. But more than that, we survive. Together. They moved to the highest tower of the citadel where the wind whipped around them, carrying the scent of the city below. From this height, the abandoned streets looked like a black river winding through the fog. Kaylin's hand brushed hers briefly, a small touch but one that sent a shiver down her spine. You have grown stronger, he said. Your control is improving and your power, it is extraordinary. But tonight it will be tested like never before. Ilara took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of her blood, the magic that ran through her veins. She was no longer the frightened orphan girl. She was a force bound to Kaylin and ready to face whatever the night would bring. The council arrived at the citadel just before midnight. They moved like shadows, tall and imposing, their eyes sharp with suspicion, Their leader, a vampire with hair as white as snow and eyes like molten gold, stepped forward. "Alpha Kalen," he said, his voice echoing in the courtyard. "You bring a human here, a creature bound by an ancient curse. This cannot continue. Your bond is dangerous." Kalen's expression did not change. "She is not a threat," he said firmly. "She is part of this world now, and her blood carries power that is necessary. Without her, the darkness inside me will consume everything," the council murmured, doubt and anger rising in their voices. Ilara felt her heart race. She had never stood among beings so powerful, so judgmental. Yet she knew Kalen spoke the truth. Her blood was unique. Her magic was ancient. And her bond with him, dangerous as it was real. One of the council members stepped forward, his fangs glinting faintly in the moonlight. "Then we will test her," he said. "If she cannot control the power within her, you will both fall." Ilara's pulse quickened. This was the moment she had trained for, the moment when fear and courage collided. She looked at Kalen and he gave her a small nod, a silent encouragement that steadied her trembling hands. The test began. Shadows rose from the ground, twisting and forming shapes of creatures she had only seen in visions. They moved quickly, attacking her from every direction. Ilara's heart pounded, but she focused on the rhythm of her blood, on the pulse that connected her to Kalen. She reached out with her magic, feeling the power within her flow like fire through her veins. The shadows hesitated, then recoiled, unable to touch her. Kalen moved beside her, defending her with precision, his strength and speed unmatched. Together they fought the illusions, their movements synchronized, their bond unbroken. Finally, the last shadow dissolved, leaving the courtyard silent. Ilara's chest heaved, sweat on her brow, her mark glowing softly. She had succeeded. She had faced the test, and she had not only survived, she had controlled the power that could have destroyed them both. The council was silent, stunned by what they had witnessed. Their leader stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "This human, she is extraordinary. Perhaps she is not a threat. Perhaps she is necessary." Kalen's gaze softened as he looked at her. "See," he said quietly, "your strength is real. You are not just my bond, Ilara. You are my partner, my equal, and my hope." Ilara felt warmth in her chest. For the first time, she understood the depth of their connection. Not just blood and magic, but trust, loyalty, and something deeper, something that went beyond words. She could see centuries of loneliness in Kalen's eyes, the weight he carried, and she realized that her presence had begun to heal something broken inside him. As the council departed, murmuring among themselves, a new tension filled the air. They had acknowledged her power, yes, but the world outside the citadel remained dangerous. Enemies would come, drawn to the unique magic in her blood and the bond she shared with Kalen. That night, Kalen took her to the edge of the city, to a balcony overlooking the abandoned streets. The wind whipped around them, carrying the scent of fog and distant rain. "You were incredible today," he said softly, his voice carrying a rare warmth. "I have never seen such control. You have faced fear and emerged stronger." Ilara looked at him, heart pounding. "I couldn't have done it without you," she whispered. Kalen's gaze lingered on her, something unspoken in his eyes. "And I could not have survived without you," he said quietly. "You are more than my bond, Ilara. You are my redemption." The word struck her deeply. She had always believed she was alone, unwanted, insignificant. And yet, here she was, standing beside a being older than time itself, and he spoke as if she had given him purpose. Ilara felt a shiver run through her. "Redemption?" she asked softly. "Yes," Kalen said. "I have walked through centuries of darkness alone. I thought I was beyond hope, but you have shown me that I am not lost, that there is still something worth protecting, worth fighting for." Her chest tightened. She had never imagined that her presence could mean so much to anyone, not even to a creature as powerful as Kalen. She wanted to speak, to tell him that she felt the same, but words failed her. Instead, she reached out, placing a hand on his arm. Kalen's eyes softened as he felt her touch, and for a moment the world around them seemed to hold its breath. The fog curled around the balcony, the city below silent, and in that quiet they shared a bond deeper than blood or magic. But even as they stood together, danger waited. Shadows moved in the distance, silent watchers in the fog. The council may have acknowledged her power, but there were others who would see it as a threat, who would stop at nothing to claim it. or destroy it. Alara realized that the night was not over. The challenges were only beginning. She had proven herself, yes, but the world outside the citadel was cruel and unpredictable. Her power was a beacon and enemies would come, drawn to it. Kaelin sensed her thoughts. "Do not fear what comes," he said quietly. "We face it together. You have strength, courage, and control, and I will not let anything harm you." Alara felt a surge of determination. She would not run, she would not hide. She had trained, learned, and faced the darkness within herself. She was ready to face whatever lay ahead, with Kaelin by her side. As dawn approached, casting faint light over the citadel, they returned to their chambers. Alara lay awake, her thoughts alive with visions, fear, and anticipation. She realized that her life had changed completely. The orphan girl who had feared shadows, who had hidden from the world, was gone. In her place was someone new, someone powerful, connected, and unafraid to step into the unknown. Kaelin stood by the window looking out at the city. The fog was lifting slightly, revealing the dark streets below. He turned to her, eyes soft but intense. "Rest tonight," he said. "Tomorrow we prepare for what is coming. The council may accept your power, but there are others who will not." Alara nodded, feeling a strange calm settle over her. She was no longer just a girl who ran in shadows. She was a force, bonded to Kaelin, carrying power, destiny, and courage she had never known. And for the first time in her life, she felt a sense of belonging, of purpose. Yet as she drifted into sleep, one thought lingered. The dangers outside the citadel were growing, and the bond that connected her to Kaelin, as strong as it was, could be the very thing that made them vulnerable. The night held its breath. Shadows watched, and the story of the orphan girl and the alpha vampire bound by blood and fate was only beginning. The night was heavy with fog, curling through the city like fingers seeking something hidden. Inside the citadel, every shadow seemed alive, every whisper carrying warning. Alara stood at the highest balcony, the wind tugging at her hair and cloak. Her pulse thrummed with anticipation, fear, and a strange exhilaration. Tonight, she knew, everything would change. Kaelin appeared behind her silently, his presence as steady as the moonlight on the black stones. His eyes glimmered, reflecting the bond that pulsed between them, a bond that had grown stronger, more intense, more dangerous than either of them could have imagined. "They will come," he said softly, almost a whisper, though she could hear it over the wind. "The council may have accepted your power, but others, they hunger for it. They will try to take what is yours, what is ours." Alara nodded, her hands curling into fists. She had trained, had faced fear, and had discovered the depth of her own strength. The curse within her blood was no longer just a threat. It was a tool, a weapon, and a shield. But the test she faced now was greater than any she had endured. "They won't take me," she said quietly, a fire burning in her chest. "I'm not running anymore." Kaelin's lips curved into the faintest smile. "I know, and I will stand with you, Alara. Always." The first attack came like a shadow swallowing the night. Figures emerged from the fog, moving faster than the eye could follow. Their eyes glowed red, their fangs glinting faintly, and the power within them was older than most mortals could imagine. They were hunters, vampires who did not recognize the bond that protected Alara, who saw only opportunity in her rare blood. Alara took a deep breath and focused on the rhythm of her veins, the pulse of magic that had been growing stronger each day. Shadows rose around her, bending to her will, forming a barrier between her and the attackers. She felt Kaelin at her side, a storm of strength and precision, moving as one with her, their bond a shield against the danger pressing in from all sides. The fight was unlike anything she had faced before. Shadows clashed with shadows, magic sparking in the night air, illuminating the fog with flashes of red and silver. Alara's heart pounded, her breath ragged, yet she felt exhilaration as well. Every move, every strike, every pulse of her blood strengthened the connection she shared with Kaelin. One of the attackers lunged toward her, a blur of teeth and claws faster than she could react. She reached out instinctively, and the energy within her surged. The attacker froze mid-step, caught in a pulse of magic so strong it made even the night shiver. Kaelin moved swiftly, dispatching another enemy with precision and ease. Together they were unstoppable, a perfect balance of human power and vampire strength, magic and might intertwined. Finally, as the first light of dawn brushed the horizon, the last of the attackers fell back into the shadows, disappearing into the fog. Ilara's chest heaved, sweat on her brow, her mark glowing softly in the early light. The danger was over, for now. But she knew that this was only the beginning of a larger war, a larger struggle for the power her blood carried. Kalen stood close, his gaze intense and unyielding. "You did it," he said softly. "You controlled the curse. You faced the danger and you survived. You are extraordinary." Ilara felt a warmth spread through her chest, pride mingling with relief. "I couldn't have done it without you," she admitted. "You've guided me, trusted me, and stayed with me." Kalen's eyes softened, the storm within them quieting. "I have not just stayed," he said. "I have been changed. Your blood, your courage, your spirit. They have awakened something in me that I thought was lost forever. You are my redemption, Ilara, my light in the darkness." The words struck her deeply. She had always believed herself invisible, unimportant, but now she understood. She had not only survived, she had given Kalen something he had lost centuries ago, a reason to hope, to fight and to feel again. They moved together to the highest tower, overlooking the city as the dawn painted the sky in soft gold and crimson. The fog was lifting, the streets below quiet and still. Ilara felt the bond between them pulse stronger than ever, a heartbeat she could sense, a connection deeper than words could describe. Kalen took her hand gently. "The curse is not broken," he said quietly. "It never will be entirely, but you have learned to control it. You have faced it, and in doing so, you have proven yourself stronger than even I imagined. Together we can face whatever comes next." Ilara nodded, feeling a sense of calm she had never known. The fear that had haunted her was still there, yes, but it was tempered by strength, courage, and the bond they shared. For the first time in her life, she felt she belonged, not to the orphanage, not to the streets, but to this world, to this bond, to Kalen. As the sun rose fully, casting light on the black stone of the citadel, Ilara looked at Kalen and smiled. "I am ready," she said softly. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." Kalen's hand tightened around hers. "Together," he agreed. "No matter the danger, no matter the darkness, we face it as one." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the city awaken below them. The world was dangerous, yes, but they had faced it and emerged stronger. The bond between them was no longer just blood or magic. It was trust, respect, and something far deeper. Something that would last beyond the shadows of the night. In the days that followed, the citadel became a place of learning, of preparation, and of connection. Ilara trained tirelessly, mastering her magic and her bond with Kalen. She grew stronger, more confident, and more aware of the power that flowed through her. The curse, once a source of fear, had become a source of strength, a reminder that she was not just a survivor, but a force to be reckoned with. Kalen, too, changed. The centuries of solitude and burden had left their mark on him, but Ilara's presence, her courage, and her unwavering trust began to heal the wounds he had carried. He was still powerful, still dangerous, but he was no longer alone. He had someone who understood him, who faced the darkness with him, and who would never leave. One evening, as the sky blazed with the colors of sunset, Kalen led Ilara to the courtyard. Shadows danced along the walls, and the air was alive with magic. "You have come far," he said softly. "You have faced the curse, the council, and the hunters. You are no longer the orphan girl I found in the fog. You are something extraordinary." Ilara smiled, feeling the truth of his words. "And you've taught me that even in darkness there can be light," she said. Kalen stepped closer, his eyes holding hers. "And you have shown me that even in centuries of darkness there can be hope," he said. For a moment the world seemed to hold its breath. The fog swirled gently around them, the shadows of the citadel bending toward their light. The bond between them pulsed, stronger and more vibrant than ever, a testament to their journey, their courage, and the love that had grown amidst danger and fear. Ilara reached up, brushing her fingers against Kalen's face. I trust you," she whispered. Kalen's hand covered hers, holding it against his cheek. "And I trust you," he said softly. "Completely." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with the last light of day. In that moment, Ilara felt a sense of peace she had never known. The curse, the danger, the darkness, they were still part of her life, but they no longer controlled her. She had power, control, and the bond that would guide her through whatever lay ahead. Kalen's eyes held hers, filled with something eternal and unspoken, We face the future together, Alara, he said quietly. No matter what comes, no matter the danger, we are stronger as one. Your blood, your courage, they are not a curse. They are our gift, Alara smiled, her heart full. For the first time in her life, she felt whole. The orphan girl was gone, replaced by someone powerful, courageous, and bound to a being who would protect her, cherish her, and fight by her side. Together, they watched the dawn break over the city, the fog lifting, the shadows retreating. The world was vast, dangerous, and full of challenges, but they would face it together. The bond between them, forged in blood, magic, and trust, was unbreakable. And in the quiet of the citadel, as the sun's first light touched the black stone, Alara knew that her life had changed forever, not just by the vampire who had whispered to her in the fog, but by the power, courage, and love she had discovered within herself. The orphan girl was gone. In her place stood a woman of strength, of magic, and of destiny, ready to face the darkness, ready to embrace her gift, and ready to walk beside the alpha vampire who had become her redemption, her anchor, and her future.